finding that that's where you can see partially the mechanics of how God works. He reveals a lot of himself in the Old Testament. So as I was going through Genesis and reading, it caught me. You know, I'm like, wow, it went this way for this to happen. And the best way to understand it, the way I see it, is an artist has a sculpture in mind when he goes to put his hand to it. So, and as he's doing it, he's shaping it and molding it. He pulls it one way, pulls it another way, to keep shaping it into the end result. And so what I've learned about my life, where I looked at my ups and my downs is just really bad and God can't use, though the ups and the downs, that's movement. That's God shaping and molding. And so the other thing I learned, that the way he shapes us and molds us is also by movement. Sometimes God will send us somewhere, and sometimes he'll pull us back to a certain place to get us to be where and who he wants us to be. But like I told you, when an artist comes up with something in his head, he has an idea, a goal. Read, baby girl.
Do I also read the top part?
You don't have to, baby. You could just read it.
The word of the Lord came to me, saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations.
So we hear him talking to Jeremiah, but come on now. He said over in Matthew that the numbers of your hair, the hair on your head is numbered. It says over in Revelation that before the earth was, Jesus Christ was chosen for our salvation. So I say that to say this, that God knows each one of our stories before we are even born. Just because he said that to Jeremiah, it still applies to every person on this planet. We can't comprehend the level that God is. A thing to kind of give you an idea, I saw this news thing where it's saying that this little size of, I think, a dime or a nickel is some kind of thing that can fit, let me make sure I got this number right, 200 and something terabytes of information on it. Now, information in computers is a lot. Before, they used to have floppy disk drives, then they moved over to the drives, and drives were really big. Remember, we used to go get those 1 terabytes all the time? And so basically 1 terabyte is 1,000 pieces of megabytes of information. And so when you think that something so small can hold 200 and something terabytes, that's like just add up everything on Netflix and throw it on that small little disk. That's how I kind of think of God, to where we really can't comprehend his measure and level of what he has for our life. And not just our life, but every human being that is. That's a lot to know everybody's path. And so when you look at that, if he knew that about Jeremiah, he has to know that about us. And so in life, it could be kind of complicated sometimes. Like, God, you made me, and I got physical ailments that I got to deal with. I got mental problems I got to deal with. And it's like, is this the life you have for me? Am I the person, and the struggles I've been through, am I the person you want to deal with? Did you make me for a purpose? Go ahead, read the next one, baby.
He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it?
So here we see the first pull. So Abraham, he tells him to leave his family and go to a land that I will show you. And so when you see this scripture right here, God is speaking to Abraham. He said, I called you from your people. Just like he said with Jeremiah, I set you apart. And like he's doing with Abraham, I called you out of the land of your people. This is the pull. God will do things in our life to pull us out of that. Whenever you're trying to, say you're trying to bake something, and in the midst of you doing it, you kind of notice that, oh, it don't taste how I wanted to do. So you go and you kind of put a little bit more in there to pull the taste that you're trying to get out. Or just like a person with a sculpture, they got an idea of it, but you know, I need to pull some more down to kind of shape it to where I want to go. And that's what he did with Abraham. That's what he does with our lives. He already said, hey, you're going to be this. And so the moment that we're born, what do? We're pulled out of the womb of a mother. So God, this is what happens in our life. Even when you look back as a kid, the things that you went through, those things shaped your mind and how you react to life now. That pulls you out. Go to the next one.
As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions.
So these first scriptures that I gave you is pretty much the basis of what we're talking about. Because a lot of people, you know, there was a person I spoke to before, and it's like, God can't be all-knowing. And I'm like, yeah, he is. And then somebody would say, well, does God really know the path of my life? Does he have He knows it before you were born. And he knows, look what he's telling Abraham. He's telling him for 400 years that people are going to suffer. Now, let's put this in perspective. He tells Abraham this, but it goes from Abraham, Isaac, to Jacob, and then Jacob and his children, right? So he told Abraham this way, way long ago. So in our lives, God knows exactly what's what for our life when we started to where we're going to end. It's just us being along for the ride. Excuse me. And as you notice what he said, that all that suffering that they're going through, what did he say? He's going to pull them out. There we go again with the pulling. Go to the next one, sweetie.
He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brother said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? They all hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon were, and 11 stars were bowing to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, What is this dream you have? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind.
Okay. So, from what I understand from my life, is that God has a set plan for us. He has a purpose for us and how he wants to use us. But you got to keep in mind that we have opposition from Satan. And so Satan, being that he knows what our position is to a degree, he tries to attack us and discourage us and stop us from seeing who we are. And a lot of the times, he kind of does succeed. Because we sit there, and even if we don't think that it's the devil, we look at ourselves. Oh, God can't use me. I can't be this. I'll never have this. I'll never have that. I remember a long time ago, my wife was like, we'll never be able to go on a car lot and get a brand new car. I'm going to be honest, I kind of thought that same thing because where we were financially, it was pretty much check to check and just Social Security. So I could see how she had that idea. Well, whenever, I don't remember exactly when, I think when we went to go get our first car, she's like, I had a dream. I'm like, okay. She's like, yeah, we was at the car dealership and we got 2 cars from there, and I kept asking you, are you sure we can afford this? So we fast forward a little bit, we got 2 cars from one dealership brand new off the lot. So you see what he did with Joseph, he showed him something that was going to take place. Now keep in mind that Joseph is the catalyst to start this whole thing that was spoken to Abraham. Remember he told Abraham for 400 years that people are going to suffer. It went through all those generations, Isaac, Jacob, and then Jacob having his sons, and it's his youngest son, Joseph, that's going to be starting this. And so I look at it as the plan and purpose that God had for our life. To me, there's been times where I've saw glimpses of who I would be, but it's never been like obtainable. I've tried to control it and say, well, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to start doing this. And some time will go by. What I was trying to do, it don't amount to anything. So I always felt like I would always be a failure. I would never be good enough to do anything. Excuse me. So those are the discouragements that you imagine his brothers, that's how Satan and how we do ourselves, discouraging us from things that God has showed us that we are. And you got to understand that those dreams that God showed him, that it was a natural ability that God gave him. That's a prophecy. But he's going to later understand dreams. And so each of us has a set skill. Like my wife, when it comes to handling stuff with the household and everyday life, she's sharp. I'll come up with an idea. I'm like, oh, yeah, let's do this. She'll be like, well, you got this, and this problem. Well, when you look at it, her mind analyzes things, and that is a good skill set. But I can see how, the way I think, I felt like I ain't got no skills. I always felt like I ain't have no gifts. But God has shown me through the years the way that I could see things. I see things kind of around. I kind of see the whole picture as I'm trying to do stuff. I could be very impulsive, but that is one of my skills that I have, is I could see outwardly what's going on. And so Joseph, this is a built-in skill that he has. But let Satan and ourselves tell us we ain't got no skills. We ain't got no gifts. We just working just to work. Well, the job you working, if you're good at it, ain't that a skill set? My wife at her job, she a beast on that computer. Let her be at home, she hates computers. But at her job, she's a beast. She's good at it. She's a leader at her job. They look to her natural leading abilities. Excuse me. Go to the next one.
Now his brothers have gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, as you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them. Very well.
So we see here's a beginning of the story. Everything seems all copacetic. He got a plan, this is what he's going to do for the day. And haven't it been like that before? Where we have a plan in our life, we're trying to do something, and we don't know how it's going to turn out. We have an idea how it's going to turn out, so we go out, set out for it. Go to the next one.
Here comes that dreamer, they said to each other. Come, now let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams.
That's what Satan is saying. Let me send this over here to him. Let's see how he'll survive this. So, going through my life, I've battled with mental illness. I've taken medicine, not taken medicine, been in manic episodes, hospitalized for this. And to see where I am today, and even for the past 8 years, without being hospitalized mentally, and to see I'm balancing a family, I'm able to handle finances, I'm working, I'm doing ministry work. This is not something that Satan wanted to see. This is not even something that I saw. So that's what Satan does. He tries to come along, and God allows it. He allows it because it shapes us and molds us. Go to the next one.
So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornament robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water.
I've been through so many times where I felt alone. I felt like I've been stripped of things that I once had. I remember I was recording music, and I was working in the ministry and doing stuff, and I decided to want to go to school. And when I did that, I fell into a really deep depression where for 3 weeks I did nothing but just sleep. And after that, my life was not the same. I wasn't recording music, I wasn't working on videos, I didn't feel like me. And so Satan came and attacked. God allowed it, because it's part of the plan. But it felt like he stripped something away from me and said that I'm something when I'm not. He lied. They said, let's say a ravenous wolf or animal killed him. So that's what Satan tries to do to you. He tries to lie to you and say that you're defeated. He tries to tell you, oh, you'll never be able to do anything. And so things are going good, copacetic for Joseph right now. He got a coat on that his dad gave him. He's feeling good. And that's how we feel in our life at certain times. And then we're going and we think that things are working out, and then boom, something flips. And we like, what the heck? Like, God, what's going on? I thought everything was good. I thought stuff was fine. And I remember when I first started at Ledger, I had a little white car. I'm like, okay, we good, we making money. And one night I wasn't paying attention and I smacked went over a curb and it bust the, I can't think of what it was, but all the stuff that got in the car couldn't bring. And I'm like, dang, God, what are we gonna do? We got this car, we got a job we gotta do, what? And when I think about it, that situation happening to what God does now, 2 brand new vehicles and working a delivery job, it's like, wow. Had that not happened, it wouldn't have set us on this path that led us to what we have now. And so this is what happened with Joseph. He's going like his dad told him to. They rip his robe off and throw him in the cisterns. And those times when we're going through problems, we feel like God ain't there. We feel like ain't nothing there. Shoot, we don't even feel like our family is there. It's like we sit there and we suffer, and it's like our family could see it, but they don't know what you're going through, the pain you're going through. You know, my wife suffered the loss of her father. That's a painful thing. So even though I'm right there, they outside the cistern. Down there, feel like nobody's there. No hope. Go ahead.
So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt.
So we see, remember I was telling you about the pull and the push. So we see Joseph goes out and God starts this story. He rips something off, pulls off his robe, pulls off his set life that he's on, and then throws him into there. And then he's pulled out of the cistern, and now he's pushed into Egypt. So you see how God is shaping Joseph's life? He does the same thing with us. Go to the next one.
Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of the Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard.
You can read, go to the next one.
Joseph found in favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of the household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned.
Here we go again. Okay, so everything was all copacetic. We went through this issue. God brought us out. It seemed like we should be stable. We should be good. And I kind of look at whenever we was at our old house, we wanted to buy it. And for years, everything was copacetic. And next thing you know, they come hollering about foreclosing on the house because of some stuff, and we got to pay all this money to set the loan right. We're like, dang, we thought we was good. We were fine. We were secure in our house. Now we got this trouble going on. And so we end up selling our house and we move somewhere else. And that's how God works us. We can never really get comfortable with where we are in our life. You never should get comfortable. Be appreciative, but never be comfortable. Because as you see, Joseph was comfortable in his life, and now he done went through this. Now he's somewhere else. Things seem copacetic, right? Go to the next one.
And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me," but he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And then she spoke to Joseph day after day. He refused to go to bed with her or even be with her.
Wow. So we trying to live our life. We trying to live for God. We trying to be who he called us to be. But we always got Satan coming at us with different elements to set us off. And we think about, you know what, God did this for me, he done this for me. How can I sit up there and go back and forth with you? How can I have lack of faith in who he made me to be? I'm trying to get on this road. Every day, Satan coming at you. Every day, you got bills coming at you. Every day, you got yourself coming at you. Every day, you got people coming at you to knock you off your path. Go to the next one.
One day he went into the house to attend his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hands and had run out the house, she called her household servants. "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house."
Doesn't this sound familiar? Doesn't it sound like he went through this already? Remember when his brothers ripped the coat off of him, threw him in a cistern, and they said, "Let's tell Father that he was devoured by an animal"? Ain't that the same thing he's going through now? Then got the coat that he had, ripped off of him again, and lies being told on him, saying that he was doing something that he didn't do. And so that's how we face opposition in life. It's things that we don't want. We don't want these things to happen, but they do. And when they happen, it's hard to see the outcome of it. It's hard to see past that and see, well, what good could come from this situation? Go to the next one.
When his master heard the story his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me," he burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done.
So we see God is doing it again. He
Amen.
was fine in his life. Brothers took him out of that life. It was over with Potiphar. Then something happened, he leave Potiphar, and now he's in the prison. And all through this, the skill set that God has for Joseph that he put in him, and each situation, God is using it. So you got to look at your life, and everything that you've been through, there is something in you that you know is consistent. Like I was explaining with my wife, all the years that we've been together, when it comes to stuff, trying to do stuff, she's always been a level head, all through these years. The thing that I've learned that I am good at leading. I didn't think that I was, but leading my family. God told me a long time ago, he said, "You bear the cross, you keep your family together." A long time ago, didn't know that would happen, and yet now here we are. I try my best to keep our family together. I try to get us to get together and do things. But this was something that was spoken long ago for me, you know? And so God spoke this a long time ago of what's going to happen with them. And yet now it's starting to come through fruition. And so he done went through all that. Now he's at the place where it's getting ready to be for God to use him. Go.
So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon, where he had shaved and changed his clothes. He came before Pharaoh.
So I'm going to fill you in on this. From the time he got to prison to that was 2 years. It was 2 years. He helped somebody out, and they just forgot about him. Oh my gosh, I feel that way. I feel like I was helped and did things with people through the years, and they say, yeah, we're going to get together, yeah, we're going to work together, we're going to do this. Nothing ever amounts to it. And I've lost hope in those things, I'm going to be honest. And I can see how Joseph could have lost hope. He said, "Man, when you get before Pharaoh, remember me." Man, that dude got to where he was going, get where he forgot about him. But God still was blessing Joseph, and Joseph didn't stop believing in God. Honestly, I would like to think that along the way, Joseph kept the dream that he told his brothers in mind. And I would think by the time he got to the prison and that particular situation happened, I would like to think that, something's going to come out of this. I done went from my brothers to Egypt, from being in Egypt to being in this prison. And now I'm thinking, what's the chance of me being in this prison with somebody who's connected to Pharaoh? Pharaoh's a leader, and I saw my brothers and these sheaves bowing down to me, there has to be a correlation between the two, right? That's what we got to do in our life. We got to stop looking at it as just a series of events and things just happening, and really look, pay attention to what's going on in our life. Pay attention to the pulling and the pushing that God is doing in us. Look at the season that we're in. Look at what's going on around you. You know, I took my son, I was talking to mom outside, and MJ was running around, and I found myself, I'm like, dang, I'm so busy working. It's like I don't take time to spend time with my son and like go outside and throw the ball or go to the park. And we could lose sight of those things that God has entrusted to our care. He's entrusted a family to me. So I can't be so caught up in the things of this world that I neglect my family. And that's the same thing for Joseph. He can't be so caught up in the fact that I'm in prison and these people done forgot about it 2 years. What is God doing? Nah, he put 2 and 2 together and he was patient. And that's how we got to be. Go to the next one.
I cannot do it, Joseph replied to the Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires.
Here we go. Here's the nugget of the thing. To know that we are not in control of anything in our lives.
Amen.
The accomplishments that we have, the failures, it is not us. God is the one who operates in us. Like, y'all telling me about being the leader and stuff like that. It ain't me. I'm not the leader. I'm not the one doing it. It is God who does it. It is His Spirit that does it. Anything that we do, anything that we're good at, it's because God put the skills in us to do it. Go ahead.
So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around him.
Let's go back to the beginning of the story when his father gave him a robe of many colors and his brothers ripped it off of him. And you think about your life, the struggles that you've been through, the level of not having finances or growing up and not having anything. Me and mom know what that's like. Now I have a life. Me and my kids don't want for a thing, nothing. My kids are spoiled. But when my life began, I never thought that I would have a family, and not just a family, let alone be able to provide for them, to be a father. I never thought I would be this. And so Joseph, he had that robe ripped off of him. I bet he never thought he would see this royalty put on him. So the same robe that was stripped off of him, now he got a royal robe put on him, and now he's in charge of stuff. Now, that thing that he started to think about while I'm here in prison, now, I get it now. I see what you were saying long ago with that dream, God. I see it now. I see it. I've had people tell me that, you're going to do certain stuff with music and video. And I thought that whenever I messed up with God, that it was gone. I thought I lost it. And God restored everything to me that I lost. Software, hardware, all that stuff. I remember I lost my camera. I remember I sold my camera. I gave away my gifts. I gave them away. And to me, I look at that, it's like those are the times where Satan stripped something from me and lied and said I ain't going to be who God called me to be. And yet, I shot my first project, professional project, this year and put it together. And God has been good to me. I prayed long ago. I said, God, I was a little kid and I was praying, God, I want to be a good father. Let me be a good father. Let me have a good wife. And God has brought these memories back to me of what I prayed as a kid. I was a teenager, like Mel's age, locked up. My whole teenage years spent locked up. And I was praying that prayer for what I have now. Never saw it, but I prayed for it. And God is doing that. He's using me to be a good father. I used to think of myself as not a good father. My wife and my family said, you were a good dad. You were a good dad. I can never see myself that way. Never. Now, I don't just see it. I'm living it. So you remember Joseph saw this dream, and now he's living it. People saw something in me that I didn't even see, but now I'm living it. Go to the next one.
When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, Why do you just keep looking at each other? He continued. I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die." Then 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt.
So here we go again. Now let's switch gears, switch the angle, because you know God sees from every angle. Now, God has moved Joseph into this position. You know that he's second to Pharaoh. Pharaoh told him to take care of all the food because the famine that was coming. So now we see that our lives and the series of events that happen to us, it's for somebody else. It's for somebody else to help them. And so now we see the bad things that happen in other people's life is to pull them. Pull, push, push. That's what God does. And so now Joseph is set up. He's ready to help his family. And the famine is what draws them out. Now, do you remember what God told Abraham in the beginning? What was going to happen to his people? Do y'all remember? 400 years they was going to suffer. Let's keep that in mind as we get to the end. Go ahead, baby.
Now Joseph was the governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground.
God showed him. He showed it to him. He showed it. And now he's living out what he saw. It is an amazing thing when you have the opportunity to see glimpses of what God is doing in your life, and then for those things to come to fruition. But you can never think that it's over there. There's always more. Read.
Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead."
See, for somebody else. That's the last scripture?
Yes.
Okay. That's the story. That for somebody else, everything that I've been through in my life is for this time. Such a time as this.
Amen.
And so when we look at this and let's throw it in a panoramic view. Remember in the beginning of the story, God told Abraham that your people are going to suffer for 400 years. Remember, Isaac, Jacob's sons, and then Joseph. Joseph was the key, and God used a famine, something bad, to pull the people, because the 12 sons and their dad came to Egypt. Then Joseph died, and then they were enslaved for those 400 years. So do y'all see how what God told Abraham way back then, the series of events that happened, all those different things, Joseph went through all of that to pull what God told Abraham into Egypt, for them to be slaves, and then ultimately set free. And that's how it feels with our life. God already has a plan for our life. He knows it from beginning to end. And as we're living our life, going through it, we'll see different parts. Okay, God, the good parts, I see what God is doing. And the bad parts, you got to understand those bad parts, like Joseph said, is for the making. It's for to help somebody else. I feel like I look at God as like a recycling sign. It goes one way, come out, and it's to go another way, to keep on moving forward. So the things that we've been through in our life, it's like a recycle, so that we can help somebody else. We go through our stuff, our ups and our downs, and then we come around and we're able to help somebody else with their ups and downs.
Amen.
And it's called the pull and the push. I pray my strength in the Lord.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.